Blockchain Show is a podcast that demystifies cryptocurrencies and distributed ledger technology.
Hello, welcome back. You're listening to The Blockchain Show. I'm your host, Ethan Kinderconnect, and thank you very much for joining us today. It's my pleasure to welcome back Jack O'Halloran from SKALE Labs. He was on our podcast a little over a year ago. A lot has happened. So without further ado, Jack, welcome back to the show.
Ethan, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Pleasure here as well. If anybody hasn't caught the last episode, feel free to check that out on our website or wherever you listen to podcasts. It was actually really good. One of my favorites. We talked a lot about scalability.
Yeah, I think we were getting into proof of work versus proof of stake and like utilities of tokens, functionality of the SKALE network. So I think if anyone has just questions on the fundamentals of SKALE, I'd be happy to do a quick summary, but I think we went a lot deeper in the last call.
Yeah, we did. And I think that was kind of like the beginning of the whole coronavirus thing. You know, I remember reading about it on Reddit and I thought, wow, hopefully that stays over there. But then, you know, we all know what happened. So, man, maybe it might be kind of good just to let us know how your year has been. And
Yeah. So I think, you know, for those of you that heard the overview last year, we're a year forward. We actually had a huge release today, a huge network release where the SKALE network now has over $2 billion staked into it. And this most recent upgrade enables all of these decentralized applications and companies and projects, either in DeFi, NFT, gaming, et cetera, to go live on the SKALE network. For those of you who didn't listen to the podcast yet from a year ago, I think one of the things I'd say is SKALE is a proof of stake network that's Ethereum native. So it's the only network that really lives half on Ethereum and half within its own node set, which means there are these computers run by validators all around the world that are the SKALE network. But then a major set of the functions of the SKALE network happen on Ethereum, and it ends up providing phenomenal security to the SKALE network and makes the network even more interoperable with Ethereum, where, you know, that's really where all the decentralized applications are living. So that's a high level overview of SKALE, and we can get into more details later. But it's been Ethan, it's been a wild year, right? I mean, a year ago, we're talking, feeling like what's going to happen. And then there was a 3-week period where everyone's stuck in their homes, and that 3 weeks turned into like a year.
Yeah, it's been wild. Luckily, you're in an industry where that's not too detrimental for your day-to-day work, thanks to the internet.
Yeah, you know, I think people in crypto, either enthusiasts, people working in the space, you know, I think we're all very fortunate, and I think we all have friends and, you know, relatives who were much more greatly impacted, and my, you know, heart goes out to those people. And, you know, I'm just hoping we can get things turned around really soon. And it sounds like there's good progress now with the vaccine, but yeah, we got to get opened up again.
Right. And I almost wonder if there might have been a little bit of a benefit with people having more time at home on the internet, maybe reading about crypto and blockchain, getting those stimulus checks. I think probably helped. We've seen a lot of people get into investing, and I don't know if this is the right way to say it, but like providing liquidity for a lot of these new tokens that are coming about. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think so. I think the major piece is, you know, if you look at, you know, if we want to call these bull runs or, you know, market growth periods, this one's very different than 2017 in that, like, there's just real traction and there's real use for these tokens. And so let's take decentralized finance, for example. If people want to take assets that, one, I think they have more time to learn about how these things work. And two, we saw a massive growth in people participating in networks compared to 2017 and 16 and 18, where people are literally just holding tokens and betting on centralized exchanges. Here, you actually have people staking and providing liquidity to networks. For SKALE, they provide security, and similar to other proof of stake networks. So you see in DeFi this liquidity pooling and proof of stake, this security pooling, and then people are actually like, you know, we're actually seeing real traction, which I think is very different than the past.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely seems like it has a lot more momentum than before. Something that happened recently that kind of piqued my interest, we talked about this on the last episode, was Coinbase going public. And people being able to buy into that, and it's almost like the SEC kind of gave the stamp of approval on cryptocurrency, maybe in some sort of way. I wanted to talk about SKALE being on Coinbase and some of these other exchanges, and just to me that's pretty huge. But maybe let us know some of the implications of what that might mean.
Yeah, so I think one, if you are a decentralized network like SKALE, so SKALE Labs is the core team. We my co-founder and I, Stan, we founded this effort, but this network now is run by thousands of people. The SKALE team doesn't even run a single server. So you end up having these projects that are kind of going from humans running them to then, that are organized in companies to then, bridging over to being decentralized and run by many, many people. And, and that's actually one, it's important for the utility of these projects and these tokens and these networks, but two, it's also an important compliance factor. And so then when you see, an entity like Coinbase list a token like SKALE, Coinbase is under the highest regulatory scrutiny of any, especially now that they're public, of any cryptocurrency company. And, and so I think it's a feather in the cap for the SKALE community and other tokens that they're listing, that not only, does Coinbase see this as something that's a viable product and utility, but also it's compliant. And so for us, I think it was, it was a great, we went to extreme lengths to be compliant and to be decentralized. I think it's a certification, so to speak, if Coinbase lists the token on the network. And I think we saw that appreciation then in the value of the token, and then that actually then corresponds to the value of the security in the network. So that was cool.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it seems like the everyday user is really just going there to look at prices and try to make a quick buck. But I've always been more interested in the utility of the tokens. How would somebody get involved who actually wants to utilize, what these tokens are intended for, other than just kind of speculating on price?
Yeah. So let's say SKALE, for example. One, you could buy SKALE on Coinbase, and as of today, you can't stake it directly through Coinbase. We're hoping that feature exists in the future. Coinbase is starting to build out this functionality. Like, for example, if you get Compound on the or USDC on Coinbase, you can actually lend it directly through the app. And and the same thing will be true, hopefully, with SKALE, where you can stake it directly on the app. And so what you can do in the interim, if you have SKALE tokens, you can send them to a Ledger wallet or MetaMask, and you can download MetaMask on your browser. And then you go to a page, it's Consensus Activate. And if you just Google Consensus Activate, there's actually a page where you connect MetaMask, you hit a few buttons, you pay some gas fees, and boom, you're staking in the SKALE network. And what you're doing is you're providing security to the network, and you're putting your money at risk. And so if a validator were malicious that you stake to, you could get slashed, your money could be slashed. But if your validator is not malicious, which, we look at blockchains, it's really not, you get paid if you're good, and you lose money if you're bad. And so it's a real easy decision for these validators to, just like people that run Bitcoin mining operations, they don't try to, steal the money. They follow the protocol because they make money. They make Bitcoin by being a good actor. And on SKALE, if you stake SKALE, you actually get a percentage return yield. And so if you had $100, you're going to get about 1% back a month, or 100 SKALE tokens, you'd get about 1 back per month. If you had 1 million, you get 1% of that. And so you end up getting about 12% of whatever you put in back in SKALE tokens over the course of the year. And that's what you're doing is you're not just owning a token, you're actually participating in a network. And then let's say, and then you can also vote with that. Let's say the network says, hey, we want to increase the bounty return to be more like 2% a month. You could vote on that and have a voice in the way decisions are made, because there's no centralized, ruler or entity in charge. It's a community that's in charge of an open source protocol.
I really like that. And I'm sorry, you might have to explain this to me like I'm 5, but what you just talked about, getting SKALE tokens back, I know you mentioned MetaMask. Is it more than just simply owning the tokens, or maybe just kind of walk me through the process of how someone would set that up?
Yeah, and so MetaMask it's an API based wallet, and so what it is, it's a wallet where Coinbase. When you have your Coinbase product, you have a wallet basically, and it holds your tokens. And Coinbase actually does a lot of stuff on the back end where they have a lot of wallets and they hold it for you. But they also have a wallet called Coinbase Wallet. MetaMask is just a wallet, and it holds these digital tokens. But it not only holds them, it lets you interact with Web3. And if you're on a Web3 enabled site and you're using MetaMask, you can connect MetaMask to that site, and all of a sudden you can interact directly with blockchains through your wallet. And you can almost think of it as, it's like this blockchain is this really complex set of like ones and zeros. And, we can't type things and talk to the blockchain and tell it to do stuff. So we need a translator. And the API wallet, or like MetaMask, is like a translator that helps you click a button to say, hey, I want to stake SKALE, or I want to send someone a token. And it actually speaks blockchain language to the blockchain and then has it do what you told it to do in a secure fashion. And then if you go to the Consensus Activate website and you go to stake SKALE and you connect MetaMask, then you basically have a translator that speaks to the blockchain for you through MetaMask and the Consensus website.
Yeah. No, that's great. Thank you for that. One of the criticisms I got from a friend, he wasn't talking about me specifically, but he says he feels like a lot of times when people talk about, crypto and blockchain, and I'll ask a question they don't know, it'll be like a chemistry teacher, trying to explain something really difficult, but that they're just kind of bluffing. Mm-hmm. So I really want to avoid doing that. So I apologize for asking these really basic questions. But
no, I think it's really good because I think a lot of people, and hey, I have to say, when I was getting into blockchain full time in 2016, I was like, okay, I just completely decided, I was like, next thing I don't want to do, it's going to be in blockchain. And then 2017, I was just listening to podcasts constantly. And sometimes it's not accessible because people aren't using analogies. They're just literally talking like deep, tech speak. And it's hard so I actually, as now that someone on podcasts, I appreciate when hosts ask me to explain things. So I'm happy to go even deeper and higher level because I think it's really helpful.
Absolutely. Yeah. The language is a big part of it. I've read a couple books where it just dives deep into the lingo. And then once you have a mastery of the language, a lot of this stuff opens up to you.
Yeah. Well, actually, so Ethan, that brings up one other interesting analogy that I was telling someone recently that might be helpful for people. So, and it's about governance. And so I think a lot of people, it's confusing. They're like, well, what do you mean governance? And how does a token let you participate in governance? It's just kind of weird, right? And an interesting kind of analogy surfaced where I was saying, well, hey, let's pretend it's a grocery store. Let's pretend the SKALE network's a grocery store. But instead of, Whole Foods or Safeway owning that grocery store, and then their goal is to make as much profit as possible, right? and they have to pay employees so they don't quit and they keep working there. But it's very different than a co-op grocery store. Co-op grocery stores don't have desires to make profit. They have desires to bring really good prices and products to shoppers and really good work experiences and money to workers. They're owned by the shoppers and the workers. And that's really what blockchains are. They're software properties that are like grocery store co-ops. And what they do is, but if no one owns a store and it's all the shoppers and the workers that own it, well, how do you make decisions when you need to change rules? And so let's say, hey, we're going to pay all the workers 20% more this year. And then, and the shopper's like, oh, but that means the prices are going to go up. And it's like, well, do we want to have happy workers? Like, okay, let's do it. And in a blockchain scenario, you actually, with the token, are able to say, hey, like we should pay the validators more money. Let's vote on that. And in the token itself, through an API-based wallet, like through MetaMask, you can connect, and then you can actually vote on items in the network, such as paying people or fees for chains, et cetera. And it's kind of like the grocery store analogy, I think, makes it more accessible and understandable to, I think people trying to learn how these systems work.
Yeah, I think you're right. One of the benefits of doing this podcast is being able to talk to people like you, and really just for a lot of people, I think it's been like an introduction to the space, and they've gone on to even join some of these movements, which is really cool. But I wanted to go back to MetaMask for just a quick moment, because we talked to Kumavis and from MetaMask in I think it was like December of 2016. And that's back when I was pretty much just the podcast engineer. Man, I remember listening to that thinking, this is amazing. And I've had it for a while, but I've never, it's for some reason, it's just kind of like having Coinbase on my phone. I just never play around with it. And when my mom was getting into computers years ago, I remember telling her, like, just push buttons and don't be afraid. There's an undo. You can, if you make a big mistake, you can probably undo the mistake. But for some reason with wallets and addresses here, I feel like, man, I really don't want to mess this up.
It's, when you interact with the blockchain, it is a machine that is not run by people. And the reason why it has security is because you can't just retrace your steps. And so it actually adds value, it adds security, but you do need to be incredibly careful where you send your tokens and whom you send them to. And that's one of the cool things that I think is improving in the space is API-based wallets are getting smarter and better at UX. And they'll say, oh, let's save this user and tag it. And then you could, let's say you sent something to your mom, and on MetaMask, you could have that address saved and label it mom instead of like 0xB9674251AB, and then have to worry about copy and pasting it in again. So we're starting to see improvements, and a big piece of the this whole scaling blockchain is really lies on the shoulders of the wallet providers, because they need to provide good user experience that helps users not lose their money.
Definitely. Yeah. It seems to be, we're moving in that direction. Demystifying all this was kind of the intention of this podcast originally. I think it was on the last episode we were talking about just the fact that it's called crypto might turn people off, like it's confusing or it might be hard to understand. I don't know. I don't know what we should call it. I think it's too late. The terms are already there. But
no. I think let's talk about this for a second, because this is something I know people are bringing this up a lot lately, and because the space is still pretty small, and you hear the word crypto. One, like you think, okay, it's cryptic, it's hard to understand. Two, it's kind of like oh, you're trying to hide something. Is there like some nefarious activity? And the only reason it's crypto is because cryptography is the underlying technology category that helps all this stuff work. But it's there's got to be a better, and I think that's why I like when people, now that we're getting out of the infrastructure layer and we're growing, we start hearing people say, oh, it's DeFi, decentralized finance, oh, it's Web3, oh, it's the ownership economy, it's the and so you have all of these higher level categories that are growing on top of blockchain and crypto. And I think it's a positive thing for the brand.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. Something that I have always been really interested in is like if someone in a third world country or a teenager or someone even younger didn't have any access to resources, but they wanted to get involved, could they start to earn cryptocurrency and eventually start to trade it and then start storing more and more value and then get involved, and then, maybe they can purchase their first rig. And I went down the rabbit hole one time about how people were doing that. And, there's things like Brave Browser where you can watch ads and get, the basic attention token. And, people were getting that and the value went up, and then they traded it for Dogecoin and the Doge went way up. And then all of a sudden they had money. And it's like, granted you could do that in, traditional markets too, or someone could go to the casino and make money and that's all good. But what's your advice for people without means to get involved in this space? Because that's something that I always try to think about when we're talking about this.
Yeah, I think it's an incredibly powerful part of the crypto and blockchain world right now is you have people in every country that are getting engaged. And if you live in, a country with a, very low rating in terms of capital and like market demographics. So like you're in an emerging economy. Like let's say you're in a place where $100 goes as far as like $10,000 here in the US, right? The cool thing is you can own a dramatically less amount of crypto, and if it goes up 10x, it still goes up 10x to you in your local economy. So you see people from all over the world participating. And then some of them, I almost think of it as the real estate industry. Like these crypto to me is real and blockchain is real. And I think people are starting to see that that's the case, as these tokens are actually real utility tokens and not just like pieces of ownership or going to casino or gambling. And so then it's almost like real estate, where the people that got in early, and like all the generations ahead of us, like people in, I think people now in their 60s and 70s were able to buy real estate at a dramatically less amount than people now. And so you have kind of this like housing crunch on millennials that is difficult. But, for our generation, it's like, oh, guess what? You could buy Bitcoin. A lot of people I know bought Bitcoin for less than 1,000 or less, and then less than 10,000. And now it keeps going up. And you look at these other networks, regardless of what country you're in, these things are accessible. And at Scale, for example, when we launched, we had 4,000 people from 90 different countries staking in the network. And I thought that stat to me was just completely mind-blowing and amazing.
Last time we talked, we talked about how you were multi-chain for Ethereum, dApp specific and all of that. I'm just wondering if in the last year, if you've had to adapt or change any of your approaches to how you're building, maybe any issues that have come up. Maybe just walk me through, the advantage of how you're able to operate with Ethereum, but you're not necessarily tied to it.
Yeah. So if you think of Ethereum right now is really good at things that require a lot of security, but it doesn't matter if there's really high cost and things happen slowly. If you think about that, scale chains are really good at doing really fast transactions at zero cost. Okay. And so a game or a DeFi application or, a Web3 product like Mayans, for example, which is a decentralized social network, they're going to be building on Scale. All of these interactions that happen on their network happen on Scale really, really fast, and at no cost. But then the cool thing is for them to run Scale, they actually need to get 16 nodes assigned to them from this big network of nodes. And so how do those nodes get assigned in a secure way? Because let's say there was a bad actor in the middle and said, hey, I'm going to send my 16 nodes over there so I can steal your money. Well, that requires a lot of security. So the Ethereum mainnet actually talks, these smart contracts work together and they say, hey, you 16 nodes, you're going to go work for Mines. Then Mines gets this pooled security because for these Scale nodes to collude, they would, you probabilistically would need to have at least 2/3 of them being malicious in order to have 2/3 malicious on your actual Scale chain. The other thing is they have to stake a lot of money. Right now, there's about $15 million staked in each scaled node. And it's in Scale tokens. Well, that doesn't just live on the Scale network, that lives on Ethereum. So Ethereum is also the safe and like bank for the Scale network. So it's a coordinator of the Scale network, an administrator of the Scale network. And you have to pay Ethereum when you want your Scale chain created because you have to pay gas fees to the Ethereum network to get it to do something for you. But we think that when you combine what Ethereum is really good at, which is really critical, high value things that have higher costs associated, and then you think about what the Scale network's good at, which is like really fast, efficient, low cost, speedy transactions. And you combine the two, that's, it's perfect synergy. And that's where the design came from. And then when we moved to ETH2, the role of ETH2 is actually is similar. It's just going to be more about maintaining a position as a beacon. And this beacon then is the, acts similar to how ETH1 acts, but it just has more, more viability, lower costs, higher throughput to operate as a foundational layer.
Yeah. No, yeah. Thank you for that. I know we talked a little bit about this last time, but that's just something I've kind of been thinking about since we spoke. It's interesting you bring up Mines because I'm a big fan of Mines.com, and it just seems like they're constantly working over there, and it's really cool. I helped Daryl Davis set up a podcast, and he's doing a podcast on there, and they had an initiative called Change Minds to try to de-radicalize people online because it's just kind of getting weird on Twitter and Facebook where people were just getting banned and kind of just pushing people further and further in opposite ends of the spectrum. And it's just, I don't know. I just like the idea of having a platform where people can actually, talk, be themselves, as long as it's not, illegal according to at least our country's laws, and just kind of have that blockchain element in the background. It's just, this is what brought it up, is when you were talking about the different nodes. A lot of people, myself included, sometimes I find myself reverting back to Bitcoin terminology where I think of nodes in terms of miners and just like a bunch of people or random computers or maybe large groups of computers. But when you're talking about nodes for scale, are we talking like data centers, or do you have individuals running nodes, or how does that work?
Yeah, so anybody can come run a node on the Scale network. But what is happening is we're seeing an industry form, and I think it's going to be a massive industry, and it's called the validator industry. And it's similar to the mining industry, but mining pools are far more centralized and I think require far more capital. And the validator industry requires really good DevOps skills or developer operations skills, because you have to run servers, you have to run containers, you have to upgrade networks, you have to do upgrade patch releases, and it's almost like the operations component of being a software engineer. And so this space is really booming, and so you have companies like Figment, Chorus One, Stake with Us, Blockdaemon, Bison Trails, Dokia, Audit One, and more. And Scale, there's 46 validator orgs. And if you look at these validators, they're the same validators pretty much that run Solana and ETH2 and Near and Avalanche. And the cool thing is you end up getting this pooled security because people as a delegator trust these validators on one network, and then they trust them on another network. And you end up, I think it really helps the proof of stake industry grow. And, just like Amazon and Google Cloud and all these web service businesses are really booming, you're going to see the same thing happen. And these validator companies are going to be massive shops that run the new internet.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's really shifting. We're seeing a lot of interest whenever I turn on, let's see, even like Bloomberg, that TV channel where they talk about like stocks, and you'll see people talking about DeFi. Then you'll see the market cap of different cryptocurrencies. It's really kind of astounding. It just kind of reminds me of when I would read all these hit pieces in like 2016, 2017 about Bitcoin, probably funded by large legacy financial institutions that were afraid of losing power. But then, then later we would talk with guests who used to work for those big, powerful financial institutions, like making their own in-house.
Yeah, they're trying to make their own blockchains, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, if you think about a blockchain is just a symmetrical set of databases that perform a function to maintain the same records, right? And so they're like, well, we're going to do our own, and we'll do our own. But they miss the point, because if one company runs a blockchain, they may as well just run one server. You don't need a symmetrical database, right?
Yeah, it's almost like they're getting hung up on the term. It's like they want to use the term blockchain, but they don't really need it for the security aspect, because they're pretty much doing everything in-house anyways. So that's something that never really made sense to me.
For me, it's like blockchains are simple math. It's like the value is the highest number here scenario. And let's say I have 10 nodes out there run by one company, then that equals 10. If I have 10 nodes run by 10 companies, then it's 100. I get and you get actual value when you have more nodes and more node operators. And if the node operations are done by one company, it's just kind of useless, because you could just literally run one node, because you're just creating more costs, because it's about penalties and rewards and incentives for the operators. And that's the whole point of running a blockchain, is that you can spread out the information. And right now, like Salesforce.com, for example, they're one company running this database, but they have a thing called redundancy. And then each database is backed up 7 times so that you don't lose the data. Redundancy is a different value than providing, a symmetrical database for a blockchain where you're, providing consensus to a ledger or to smart contracts.
Yeah, I see. Wow. We haven't really talked a whole lot about the dApps or the Scale Innovator Program. I'm always interested in gaming, but maybe you could just talk a little bit about some of the other interesting products that are being developed there, if you know of any.
I mean, we very frequently there's more and more announcements made of who's building on Scale, and we just slowly roll these out. There's 135 teams signed up. I'll give you a really cool example in gaming. There's a game called Crypto Crusades. What makes this game unique is that the gameplay is actually on the blockchain. Most blockchains, you play a centralized game, and then the game tells the blockchain who won. The game is kind of the interface to the blockchain and the translator of the blockchain. And let's say you and I are playing a game, and I beat you, and then I get to take your sword or your card. Then it's on the blockchain that it's mine. But whether I beat you or not, it's not on the blockchain. And let's say the game developer says, you know what, I'm going to make my players more powerful and go win all this money. And, and they could do that on these most blockchain games because the gameplay isn't trustless or actually on chain. And this game Crypto Crusades makes it so all of the key movements and activities are on the blockchain. And if that happened on Ethereum today, each one of those actions might cost $100 or $50 or $20. And so it would just not be cost effective and it would be slow. But on Scale, you're able to play this blockchain game and it doesn't cost you anything to do these actions because the game rents the blockchain for a period of time and pays in Scale tokens. And then your transaction time's sub-second instead of 15 seconds or 20 seconds. And so it just opens up new use cases having high performance blockchains. And that's one cool example in gaming. And I suggest people who want to watch the evolution of blockchain gaming and are interested in this, check out Crypto Crusades and kind of see what they're building.
Yeah, definitely. I'll check that out. Thank you for that. That's really pretty interesting. And I didn't realize we just blew past our time by 10 minutes. I apologize. It's really...
Oh, hey, all good. This has been fun. And, hopefully to the listeners out there, I was able to, shed some new perspective and insight and help your learning. Cause I remember when I, just being a blockchain enthusiast, it's always interesting to hear new thoughtful perspectives. So hopefully all of you have enjoyed the discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. I know I have. It's a continual process. Yeah, if you've got time, I know we talked a little bit about the network upgrade, but if there's anything else you want to let us know about any recent events or where people can go to learn more and get involved, that would be great.
Yeah, so just go to Scale Network, so scale.network website, and Scale, SKALE. You could is a great place. You could follow me on Twitter at Jack O'Halloran. And if you're on Telegram, you can go to @ScaleOfficial. And there's about 11,000 people on that chat talking day and night. And so come join the community. And if you're a developer, come check us out on Discord, and we'd be happy to help you get set up with Scale.
Awesome. Well, Jack, I really, really appreciate your time. Thank you for coming on. Man, sometimes I feel like Chris Farley from that SNL skit when he's interviewing Paul McCartney. I just get a little bit nervous. But thank you for coming on. It was a real pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, you did great. Thank you. Really awesome, and appreciate you having me on the show.